So in this video I'm going to be explaining how to read music theory or like sheet music as a beginner, and I understand that if you haven't had a private instrument tuition, it can be really hard to get into learning like what these notes are, why are these so different, why do these have different tails, all of this like jargon, right? So I'm going to be explaining like the very basics of it so you can understand it very quickly. This is literally learning like 80% of the stuff. The rest of it will come along like much easier. Okay, so I'm going to give you the fundamentals. Okay, so if you look over here, we're first going to be learning basically the right hand. So if you're playing piano or just any song that has like a melody, right, it's probably going to be in the treble clef. The melody is going to be in the treble clef. Now you have to figure out what those notes are as well. So the note that you want to look for is middle C. So this note here, that's middle C, okay? Middle C, that's where basically the middle of all the notes are, okay, on a piano. Middle C is literally just the middle of the actual piano. Now, music works just like the alphabet, okay? So you're not starting on, if you're starting on C instead of A, the next letter after C is D, right? So then this next note here, that's D, right? Next note will be E over here. Let me just change it for you. So this next note will be E, then the next note F, and the last note will be G. Okay? Whoops. There. So that last note there is G. Now in music it doesn't go to H. It doesn't just keep going along the alphabet. It goes back to A. It goes to A, right? So after G it goes to A. So up here that'll be A. And then B and back to C. Okay? So that's C, D, E, F, G, and then back to A, B, and C. Okay? Now obviously you can figure out, you can get the rest of these notes, okay? Which is like, let's say over here, you want to extend it. So let's figure it out there. Okay. So that's D, then E, F, and then G. Now you might notice like, oh, what are these lines here, right? It just extends it. They're called ledger lines, so you can just keep on going, right? So like as you see here, C here has a ledger line. It just gives it a note to actually, sorry, it gives it a line to actually just sit on. So over here it would just be A, and then it would just keep going up, okay? You get the idea. Now, this might be kind of hard to understand at first, but if you see it this way, right? So there's a thing that you learned, it's like a sentence you learn to figure out basically the rest of the notes, okay? So see here, E, okay? Imagine the rest of these notes weren't here, because I'm just going to delete them. I'm going to leave a few of them. There you are. Okay, so if you were only left with these notes, okay, there's a really easy sentence to actually just figure out these notes, okay? So what I learned anyway is, well, every good boy deserves football, okay? So that's E, G, B, D, and F, okay? Now you can use obviously you can use any sentence, okay? You can change it around. Like, I live in Scotland, right? So I've heard every Glasgow bus drives fast. I've heard of that before. There's also something to do with elephants. I don't know that one, but I just know those two anyway. Those are used quite a lot, okay? But you can use this to help you figure out the rest of the notes. So that's for the treble clef here. Okay, so that's what it looks like. That's for the right hand, the melody. Now, next thing we have to figure out is rhythm, okay? So yes, you might have figured out how to read the notes now. I need to figure out the rhythm, okay? So let's take these out first. Now, the first rhythm you need to know is the quarter note, okay? So I'm just going to show you here the quarter note. So that's the C, that's a C note, but it's a quarter note. So that tells you, basically in this music, if it's in this music, okay, you need to have 4 quarter notes, because 4 quarters, like think about it as a pizza. You need 4 quarters to make a pizza, right? So you can just write in 4 quarters, just like this. Oops. And then 1 here and 1 here. Hold on. I'm gonna fix this, messed it up just a tiny bit. There we go. So these are quarter notes, right? So you need 4 quarter notes to make 1 bar. That makes sense, right? So this is like the bar line that tells you how much you've got, really. So that's how it's split. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Those are quarter notes. Now, if you're good at maths, you're going to be good at music, just like understanding music. If you're not, just go by feel, I guess. So quarter notes, they can be split up even more, okay? So a half of a quarter is an eighth, okay? So you can split that up. This is what an eighth note would look like, okay? It's a small tail. So quarter notes as just a stem, no tail. Quavers have, or sorry, not quavers, eighth notes, they have a tail, okay? Now when you have 2 quavers, keep on saying that, when you have 2 eighth notes, you get 1 quarter, okay? Does that make sense? So like you get 2 halves of a quarter, add them 2 together, you get a quarter, just like that, okay? So that makes 1 quarter, or 2 eighth notes, yeah? So those are quarter notes and eighth notes. Now you can get a whole note, or sorry, a half note. So you get a quarter, you get an eighth, but then before a quarter you can get a half, okay? So this is what a half would look like, okay? So it's just like white, okay? So instead of all blacked in like this, right? It's white, okay? And that would be 2 beats, okay? And then you can, and before a half you get a whole, so like a whole pizza, okay? That would take up a whole bar. So then you could only have 1 of these. That's what it would look like, okay? So instead of having a stem, okay, it would just be 1 like big white circle, okay? So that's a C whole note. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. You're just holding that in for 4, okay? Now, if I were to write out, let's say, basically a simple rhythm, okay? So something like this. And then I had, let's say, whoops, if I had, let's say, some eighth notes here, and then a minim here. So, like that. Oops. Oh, no, that's wrong. So if we do this, and then, yep, this, and then we give this a half note, okay? So yeah, I keep on saying minims and all that. This is like, so in music, right, you can learn it either the American way or the British way. The American way is honestly so much easier, alright? And that's what I've been trying to basically teach you. So that's eighths, quarters, and halves. It just makes a lot more sense than crotchets, quavers, semi-breves. Honestly, that has confused me. I've been taught that, but I prefer the American one, alright? So that's why I'm going to teach you it. It's just much easier to explain, okay? So this is just a simple rhythm here. So if you were to clap to this, it would be like, if the rhythm is like, sorry, the tempo is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But to actually play along this rhythm, okay, you need to understand, well, the rhythm. So this will be like 1 da 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 da. Okay, so that's 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. Okay, now in music there's not just notes, there's also just rests. So that's when you're not playing anything at all. Okay, so the rest for a quarter note would look like this. If I can, yeah, just like that. Alright, so it looks like a little worm. Alright, that's what it's just always going to look like. Now for quavers, it's going to look like this. Okay, whoops. It's going to look like that. Alright, and then for a half note, okay, it looks like that. So these can look a bit different, but this is basically all the things you really need to know. Okay, I mean for the whole note anyway, for the whole note rest. Okay, so first of all, yeah, this is like still, you know, 1 beat, so just a quarter note. Okay, but you just don't play anything. This is still an 8th note, but you just don't play anything in that time. Then this is a half note, you don't play anything in that time either. But for here, if you wanted a whole note rest, that basically means like in this whole bar for 4 beats, like 1 2 3 4, you're not playing anything at all. Okay, so this is what it would look like if I, yep, whole note, there we go. So it rests on the second line down basically. Okay, instead of basically the line. So if I show you, so that's for 4. Okay, now you can also get, I think it's, yeah, it's over here. So this is a half note rest for 2. Okay, so that sits on the middle line pointing upwards, and then the whole note is pointing downwards for the second, from the second top line. Okay, now the next thing we need to go over is the time signature. I went over it just a little bit, but basically in music everything's just kind of intertwined. But time signatures, they can be a bit funky sometimes. In pop music, in the music that we don't really listen to, everything's probably going to be in 4/4. Okay, so it looks like a division kind of thing, a fraction from maths, right? That could help you. Okay, but basically each of these numbers, they mean something here. Okay, so this top number here, it tells you how many notes there are for the time signature. Okay, so that's the number, so this top one. And then the bottom one is basically the value of the notes, the note value that you have. Okay, so the note value here is a quarter. Okay, just like maths, a quarter. Now the top one is how many. Okay, so that's 4. So that's 4 quarters. Okay, so 4 quarter notes. So it would be like 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, just like that. Now if I were to change this to basically 3 4 instead, that tells you that there's three quarter notes. Okay, so then it'd be like 1 2 3 1 2 3. Okay, and then again, if we change this top one to 5, it would just be 5, right? You get the idea. It's just like 1 2 3 4 5. Yeah. Now those are the basics for time signature. There can be sometimes, if you're learning something like this, 5/8, okay, or sorry, maybe like 6/8. Okay, that's a little more common. So 6/8. You might think, okay, so then it's 6/8 notes. Okay, but the thing is, you wouldn't count like 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2. I mean, actually, technically you would. But basically, instead of the emphasis being on 1 2 3 4 5 6, okay, it's in compound time, so it counts in 3s. Okay, so like 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, so 6/8 is in like compound time, and then anything that's basically that has the 4 at the bottom is simple time. Okay, simple time, that's just like easy. Okay, much easier than 6/8, which is like 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, so that's time signature basically covered. Now we have to also cover basically flats and sharps. Okay, So flats and sharps, I'm going to put out some notes out here first. So they apply to the note itself, okay? Like it tells you whether to basically make the note slightly higher in pitch or slightly lower, okay? But not quite the next note, okay? So if you were to make C a higher note, yes, it would be D, but you didn't, well, let's say you wanted to put it in between, okay? You could get C sharp, okay? So if I can find out how to actually sharpen here, give me 1 second. Okay, there we are. So that's how you sharpen stuff. So it would come just before the note, okay, as you see there. So that's C sharp, okay? You can tell it's slightly higher, but it's not quite D. That's D, that's C sharp, okay? Now you can also get, like let's say for D, yeah, you also wanted to sharpen it, you can do the same, okay? So let's just bring that out as well. So that's D sharp, okay? Now the thing is, there's not just sharpening, you can also flatten the notes. That's making it slightly lower, but not quite the note below that, okay? So that's what it looks like just here. It looks like a small B next to it as well. Okay, that just flattens the note, okay? Now you might also notice that, like, oh, between the notes C and D on the piano, okay? Let's just delete this first. So on the notes out of a piano, okay, let's say, yeah, the D note for example, okay, there are 2 sharps in between it, okay, or not 2 sharps, so it's like 2 black notes in between it, so you could technically go D sharp or D flat if you wanted to, right? But because of that, so let's say you wanted D flat, okay, so let's just write a D flat here, okay. You may notice that for C, the note next to D, okay, you could sharpen this, okay, but it sounds exactly the same, because that's the thing. C sharp is the same as D flat, okay? So if you listen here, okay, now it can be kind of funky, but that's just how it is, alright? C sharp is just the same as D flat, but you would write it out in this certain way, okay? I don't know why they wanted to do this, but that's just how it is, okay? Now that's just called enharmonic equivalence if you want to look into that, but basically just know that some notes, even if it's sharp or flat, they can be the same if they're next door to each other anyway. Last thing we need to cover is the bass clef, okay? This is the bass clef here. Anything on the left hand, okay? So anything lower in the bass, that's why it's called the bass clef, okay? Now the bass clef, it follows the same like alphabetical thing, okay? So it goes from like A, B, C, D, E, F, G and back to A, okay? But it wouldn't follow exactly like this note here, that wouldn't be E just yet, okay? It actually changes. Because it's lower, it has different notes here. So like let's say here, this is an A here. Okay, actually I'll change these to quavers, yep. So there's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it goes to A, B, C, okay? So this is in the bass clef, the left hand, okay? Now there is also another sentence for this, just to figure out these notes really quickly, okay? So this bottom note here, so these are just the spaces, okay? I'll delete it so you can see it a bit more clearly. So these notes here, in these spaces, so that's A, C, E, and G, okay? You can use a sentence like all cows eat grass. You know, geniuses, alright? That's what I've learned anyway. If you find something else easier, you can let me know, but that's all I've learned. I haven't heard of any other sentences for this, but this is what I use anyway, so same rule. So basically if you know this is G, you can figure out this is F, or the next note above, that's A, okay? Also, because the bass clef will always be written below the treble clef, because the melody will always take the emphasis of the song. Okay? And I mean, yeah, let's cover this as well. So after this, I'll show you here. Where is it? Okay, there we are. So yes, this is A, right? And then it goes to B, and then, oh sorry, A, and then B, and then C. But the thing is, this C here is actually the same as the C as you would get in the treble clef, just at the bottom anyway, okay? So I will show you this here. Yeah, that'll work. Do you hear that? C and C, they're just the same, okay? So if this extended up even higher, like to D here, that's also, they share the same D there. Okay? Now, what I've just covered there, it is just the basics of music theory, alright? It will be enough to basically get you by most music. Now, you may encounter things like these lines that go across, like from underneath the note, okay? Or basically dots, or like basically a dot between, like next to a note on its right, okay? That stuff, that can come a bit later, but right now I'm teaching you just the very basics. It will just get you by. If you have any questions like that, you can always just search it up, or you can just ask me if you want. But this will be enough to basically get you by, and to even write your own music. Like right now I'm using this website, I think it's called, yeah, Noteflight. It's like MuseScore, but this is like free. I don't know how it's not paid, but it's actually used. I'm not sponsored either, by the way, but you can use this if you want to make music, or just want to test out basically your music, your like notation knowledge, I guess. This is what you would call it, notation. Okay, but I hope you found this helpful. I understand that music theory can just be quite scary, so I hope that what I've actually just explained is digestible for you. I hope. If there's any way that I could have done this better, please let me know. Okay? Well, that's all I have. Bye bye. Hey, so I'm also offering one-on-one coaching calls for music. So if you have any questions for songwriting, or you just want some help with songwriting, or just trying to get better at your instruments, such as piano, which I mainly play, but if it's another instrument, I might be able to help you just a little bit there as well. So if you email me here, we can set up a call together, and then I will try my best to help you. Okay, that's it. Bye bye.